In this video, I'm going to go over some of the practice homework problems, and I'm going to go over some of the more difficult ones. And they're actually some of the first homework problems, which you would think for a book they would start with the easier ones and get gradually harder, but I think they made some of the harder problems first. So I don't know why they do that. But hopefully going over the more difficult problems will help you even with the easier problems. So let's dig right in. Okay, so we're going to be looking at letter 7a. Okay, so 7a, which of the following statements are true and which are false? So 7a, it is impossible for all the premises of a valid argument to be false. True or false? It's impossible for all the premises of a valid argument to be false. So could that be that all the premises of a valid argument are false? Is it possible or impossible? That's what we're asking. Now, the first thing you should think about is think about the example I gave in class. So P1. And by the way, I hope you did work on this on your own first. It's good to try on your own first. See if you can solve it on your own. You feel good if you can solve it on your own. But even if you can't get it, it helps you learn by trying and not being able to get it. If all you do is listen to me, it's not going to stick as well. So, okay, premise one. Let's start with all women are immortal. P2. Socrates was a woman. Conclusion. Socrates was mortal. Okay. Now, one of the things we learned about this problem is you can have a valid argument with a false premise. So that's a previous lesson we learned. But unfortunately, this problem doesn't help us because for problem 7a, it says it's impossible for all the premises of a valid argument to be false. And in this one, it's not all of the premises because premise 1 is still true. Okay. So what are we going to do here? Well, if you think about this argument, you can actually just revise it a little so that it's still valid, but all the premises become false. How are we going to do that? Well, we just look at it. We can just revise. Let's see. There's a few ways to do this, but here's one way. All women are immortal. All women are immortal. Socrates was a woman. Therefore, Socrates was immortal. Okay, Socrates was immortal. Okay, now is this a valid argument? Okay, is it impossible for the premise to be true and the conclusion to be false? Well, let's use our test from last time. Suppose it were true that all women are immortal and that Socrates was a woman. Okay, then it would be impossible for it to be false that Socrates was immortal. Like, given the truth of these, it would have to be true that Socrates was immortal. Okay? So now what we do have, though, is this premise false? All women are immortal? Yes, that's false. Socrates was a woman? Is that false? False. Okay? And so we have an answer to our problem. Okay? It is impossible for all the premises of a valid argument to be false. That's false. Okay? It is possible for all the premises of a valid argument to be false. And we see that with this argument. Okay? So hope you got that. You can always rewind and go over it slower. That's the value of these online classes. Okay, now let's look at B. It is possible for the conclusion of a valid argument to be false. Is that true or false? It is possible for the conclusion of a valid argument to be false. I'm looking at 7b. Well, hey, look, we got one right here. Is it true that Socrates was immortal? No, Socrates was killed by trial, and he had to drink poison, hemlock, and that's how he died. Okay, so we actually got an answer to 7b as well. So 7b, it says, and hopefully you have your own, you can check your own books, but it is possible for the conclusion of a valid argument to be false, and that's true, because that's what this argument is. Okay? Okay, let's look at one more problem. Here's my answer is false, true. You'll learn how to do C later, but okay, let's look at D. Okay, you did not see that. Okay, this one we'll do quickly. So a valid argument cannot have all true premises and a false conclusion. A valid argument cannot have all true premises and a false conclusion. Well, if you think about that, for this one, we don't have to look at this. Just look at our definition of validity, which says it's impossible for the premises to be true and a conclusion to be false. Okay? And 7D just says a valid argument cannot have all true premises and a false conclusion. Well, that's just our definition of validity, but it just says a valid argument. Yeah, that's just our definition of validity. It's impossible for a valid argument to have all true premises and a false conclusion. Okay, so that is true. Okay, so we just gone over 7a, 7b, and 7d. And what we had to do, though, was, especially for 7a and 7b, is we had to look at the argument and then just formulate it, make it into a valid argument, and realize, oh, a valid argument could have all false premises and false conclusion. Okay, so that's how you would do those problems, and by reflecting on that, hopefully that will help you think about how to do some of the other problems. Okay.